afternoon, everybody. My name is Dan. I'm the Jazz Shepherd. How y'all doing today? Today we're moving on to part 4 of season 2. I thought it was Bethlehem, but it's actually Savoy. I want to keep the sequence the same as last season. So here we are in Savoy, 1957-58. And Herman Lubinsky, of course, as we covered in part 1 of this, was the guy in charge. Had a fairly bad reputation for how he treated his black musicians. And it probably went the same for his Italian and white musicians. He was pretty dictated by just making a buck. And did not seem to have a lot of consideration for where jazz was going, what was happening in jazz currently. He just seemed to want to get cats in, chew out records, and hope that something caught on. There's no theme to what Savoy's doing. There's no current that you feel like this is the direction that the label's heading. It's very hodgepodge. They're still very much still issuing music from the 40s and early 50s. You know, for example, they're still putting out Parker sessions here in 1958. They're still putting out Dizzy Gillespie stuff that was recorded a long time before this. There's a lot of compilation records that'll have a lot of the early bebop guys, the Stitz, the Navarros, the Powells, the Hank Jones, Stan Getz's. There's a lot of compilations on Savoy. And a compilation record, no matter how you want to look at it, it's generally a money-making enterprise. It's not there as to make some kind of new art. It's there to hopefully sell, you know. And again, Lubinsky's reputation is kind of what helps me inform on that. That's not to say there wasn't some great stuff here on Savoy in 58 and 59. It's a fun label. Again, it's out of Newark, New Jersey, so it's in the New York periphery. So it still attracts a lot of the great New York players. And it seems like a lot of the guys, like Mobley, play earlier in their careers on Savoy. And then they move up to the New York labels downtown and Midtown, the Blue Notes and the Prestiges and the Riversides. Let's just cover some of the stuff that came out here for this period. There's a singer, that's something you know about, Jimmy Scott. He doesn't get spoken of enough as far as I'm concerned. He's a great singer. He's I'm not sure if he's a soprano or possibly even an alto, but he's got definitely a real high voice and a sensitive rendition of these songs. Big fan of Jimmy Scott. First heard him actually in David Lynch's Twin Peaks, Fire Walk With Me. They use them, sycamore trees, the Black Lodge stuff. There's a lot of this kind of type of stuff. Easy listening jazz that swings, has some meat to it. You got Joe Puma, who I love on guitar. You have Matt Matthews on accordion, Herbie Mann, Whitey Mitchell. So stuff like this is going to be comparable to what's happening on Dawn and Bethlehem. It's meant to be attractive to white audiences. Stuff you can bring home to mom. Like, look, I got a jazz record, mom. And then it wasn't those black debutantes, you know, that Blue Note was doing on a regular basis. Tanganyika Strut is a great session. Wilbur Harden. Of course, this is famous and been kept around as long as it has been, largely because of young John Coltrane was on it. And Coltrane's legacy is such that if he's on a session, it kind of keeps it available in print and on people's radars. Curtis Fuller, the great trombone player, who of course is on Blue Train, over on Blue Note with Coltrane. He has a sequence of records here in 59 on Savoy. And it's a great little band he put together with Benny Golson, Flanagan, Garrison, Al Harewood. This one's got Lee Morgan, Wynton Kelly, Paul Chambers. They're really solid records. Not the greatest covers, but again, Savoy does what Savoy does. I think I showed you this at the end of episode 1. It's a Hank Mobley record. Great lineup. Morgan Bird, Hank Jones, Barry Harris, Doug Watkins, Kenny Clark, and Art Taylor. So it's culled from a couple different sessions. It probably has something to do with the success that Mobley was not having at Blue Note. So they took a few jam sessions they had in the vaults, put the Mobley name on it, And it's not on par with what he's doing at Blue Note by this time, but it's still part of the Mobley discography. It's a great piece to find, and you can find it for about $100 for an old copy like that. This is a cool record. I like it quite a bit. Got a beautiful little cover. Hot Woman Never Hurts. It's a jam session again, arranged by A.K. Salim, with Griffin, Dorham, Buster Cooper, Pepper Adams, Wynton Kelly, Chino Pozzo, Max Roach, and Paul Chambers. So again, you're talking some pretty high-name jazz royalty there, but there's always a bit of chaos and a bit of a lack of coordination on these Savoy records. This is a Dexter Gordon session, a weird cover. It's not even Dexter on the cover, and I think this session came from the late 40s, early 50s. So again, they're still just issuing stuff. Dexter was having a resurgence at Blue Note by that point, so let's. Actually, I don't think Dexter's back on Blue Note quite yet, but just Gigi Grice record, nice big band. Booker Irvin has an early session here before he goes on to more fame and other labels. There's a Jazz Messenger set that I'm not really sure how this one ended up on Savoy either. A lot of interesting curiosities when it comes to what's happening at Savoy. One of the guys who made 6 records, 5.5, at Savoy in 57, 58 was Yusef Lateef, and they're tough to come by. They're rather expensive. Some decent covers. I only have 4 of them. One of them is called Stablemates. It's got the chest piece, the knight, and it's got another side with somebody else on it. So Savoy's doing some good stuff, but it's not anywhere near where the other labels were at. And then another interesting thing about Savoy in this period is they had a sister imprint like everyone was doing at this point, and it was called Regent. And Regent starts out with some jam session stuff, some vocal stuff with Joe Williams from Count Basie's group, another collection compilation, and then West Coast Concert, another compilation. Then they start doing some of the Billy Eckstine vocal stuff, and there's a number of Eckstine records here, and I'm not sure if these are actually from 58, 59 or earlier, but this is a great record here on Regent with Curtis Fuller, Sonny Red, Tommy Flanagan, George Tucker, and Louis Hayes. It's a tough record to come by. You don't see it very much. This Jazz Eyes with John Jenkins and Donald Byrd and Curtis Fuller. So again, you're seeing some really good hard bop players here. Another Eckstine record, and then an Art Pepper and Sonny Red record, which I think is actually a side for each of them again. So again, Savoy, there's a lot of stuff that's really worth collecting, and you just have to kind of go into it knowing that it's part of the canon, it's part of the jazz history, but it's not quite the royalty of what's happening across the water in Manhattan with Riverside, Prestige, and Blue Note. You gotta be thankful for Savoy. They certainly documented a lot of the great bebop guys in the late 40s and early 50s, and that seems to be where Lubinsky's bread was buttered. So he's kind of constantly rehashing and repackaging that stuff and putting it out. He seems hesitant to really embrace the militancy of the hard bop movement, but he almost reluctantly starts to say, okay, yeah, we better bring some of these cats in to stay somewhat valid in the jazz circles. But Savoy's definitely a slight notch below. Not to say there ain't some great records and great sessions. I love my Savoy collection. And honestly, it's some of the weird titles that you don't think of, little weird guitar players that I'm like, that's a fun record. Never heard of the guy, but he's a great player. You know, those kind of things. There's a lot of weird titles on the Savoy discography that you don't see reissued. They'll only be available as original pressings. And to me, those are the ones that are fun to stumble on, because you'll be in a yard sale or a garage sale, and you'll see some old Savoy or Regent record, and oh, I'm gonna grab it. And because the names are fairly anonymous to most people, they usually will be very affordable. So unless you're talking about the Mobley and a few other cats, Savoy records won't break the bank. Some of that later stuff with the Booker Irvins, I don't think they sold a lot of copies of that. You only seem to see the reissues of those nowadays. Savoy's an important chapter in jazz history, and I encourage you all to collect Savoy. just know what you're getting into when you buy it. It's something that's probably been issued a few times before. The old red blood labels are fun to have. It's always a fun thing to stumble on as a Savoy record, and it just feels very vintage to me. A lot of the art, the graphics, a lot of it just has a very throwback, my grandpa's basement when I was a kid look to it. So I think there's a nostalgia part for me as well. Savoy Records, the Savoy Ballroom, it just feels very much early half of the 20th century, and there's a reluctancy to really stay too modern and too hip, but that's part of the jazz history, you know. It's part of how this whole thing plays out. Is it's a race between an art form and a business, and some labels are going to side more with the business side of things. Some labels are going to be more about the doctrine of let's just document this movement in this time in this moment in jazz. So anyway, dig Savoy, buy them when you see them. A lot of the more desirable titles have been reissued by the Japanese. So they're out there. You can get them for $20 from Japan. It's a shipping that'll kill you. So I always encourage people, when you buy from Japan, buy 4 or 5 records, because you're not going to pay much more to ship 5 than you will to ship 1. So go to some Japanese store, you find a record you want, look to the store and find 2 or 3 other things, because the shipping won't kill you as much and you won't feel as bad about paying as much for shipping as you did for 1 record. Paying $20 for shipping for 5 records sure beats paying $20 for 1 record. So anyway, I'm the Jazz Shepherd. Tune in soon, because I'm going to have my part 2 on Bethlehem in the late 50s. Love Bethlehem. They certainly take a bit of a turn down as the 50s move along into the 60s. Not to say there's not some great titles. Plus the Velvet Fog's there doing his thing throughout that period. He has a lot of records on Bethlehem. So tune in, check it with me soon. Subscribe to my channel. A lot of the jazz people and friends of yours who know to listen in, because I am presenting a lot of the history of these labels, and it helps people to collect and find stuff. So I appreciate you all for watching, for subscribing, for talking and sharing. Appreciate your comments and feedback. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.